Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show. Man, I am excited. My new friend, buddy, former Globetrotter, which I'm still just, I'm the little giddy kid, is joining us, Mr. Herb Flight Time Lang. Herb, how you doing, brother?
I am doing great, Otis, man. First of all, I want to thank you and Cam for giving me this opportunity to be on your platform and share what I'm sure is with a great audience of people and let them know that kindness is free. And you know
Oh,
that, Otis.
yes, yes, it is. It is. Give it away, folks, and I know we'll be talking about that throughout the show. Uh, but I love talking to professional athletes because I'm always amazed, and I didn't realize this when I was in the Army, but I'm amazed at the similarities in our mindsets and career professional athlete, career military, and what happens when you get out and you retire, whether it's on time or not by choice. But I think
Unexpectedly.
you were fortunate enough to retire at that season of life. And what happened, man, when you stepped away from the game? Because I mean, an international superstar for 16 years, I think, and then now you're just Herb on the street. How'd you handle that, man, with what to do next?
Yeah, Otis, man, I'm glad you asked that question. And I want to thank you for your service to the military. My dad, he served in the Navy when I was young. He did 4 years. And then later on in his life, he re-enlisted in his 50s and actually served as a chaplain in
Oh,
the
wow,
National
that's
Guard
cool.
down in Arkansas. So he did a couple terms over in Iraq and Afghanistan. So the military is something that is definitely near and dear to my heart. Also have an opportunity while my time with the Globetrotters to tour different military bases in Europe and over in Asia and even throughout the United States. But you are absolutely correct in the similarities and coming from something after doing it for so long. I was able to play for the Globetrotters by themselves just for 18 years, but that doesn't even count the 4 years of college, the high school, the middle school, the elementary school years that were put into doing the same, job, the same career. Of course, there was some education that, of course, came along there with the 4 years of college and then just the education of life, being able to travel and have so many different experiences. But at some point, it all comes to an end unless you're a lifer, which for you, you eventually, ended your time. And for me, I got that phone call. A lot of people think that I may have retired, but that's not really how it happened. After 18 years of touring down around the world and even acting in a role as a player and a coach and thinking that you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, one day you get that phone call, and that's what happened to me. But in getting that phone call, just like anybody else, I was disappointed, brokenhearted, trying to figure out what my next role would be. Had just turned 40 years old, having two kids. My kids at that time were, I think they were 11 and 12 years old, and just trying to figure out, man, I've given my entire life to this one thing, this one sport, been so committed, and now it's over with. So, as a strong-minded person and as a positive thinking person, I was able to, within a couple of days, reflect and realize how fortunate I had been to have that opportunity for that amount of time. And at the same time, I was able to realize that when I came in, someone else lost that position, and they probably didn't hold it for as long as I did. But there's still, there's also the sense that, man, I should have been able to leave on my own. But the best thing that happened to me, I think now, reflecting 5 years later, was that happening because it took me out of the square, and now it put me into a little bit of everything, into the entire world where I was boxed in to
Mhm.
limitations for such a long period of time. Although during those limited times, I was able to see and learn so much. And now, as a former athlete, as a former person who was big into education, I mean, my degree is in health and physical education, and I was class president of my high school, and I was always focused on education. So I realized that the experiences that I had happened for me, I think, to teach others. And through my teaching, one of the things that I did after a year of retirement, I wrote a book uh, called Projects, Popes, and Presidents, and it kind of talked about my journey. And in that journey, I was able to reflect on a lot of the experiences that I had, the good and the bad, and push some of those things aside and able to move forward. Also, during that time, one of the things I tell people I started to do was the first job that I took was driving for Lyft. I did that for almost a year, and with driving Lyft, what it did for me was coming into the Globetrotters back in '99. We didn't have cell phones. I mean, you're one or two people may have had a cell phone. Then around 2000, 2001, everybody on the bus, on the tour, on the planes, we all had cell phones. And I'd say probably around 2005 is when the texting kind of got popular. 2004 or 5, people started T9 texting, and the sidekick phone started coming out. And what it seemed like happened is the ability to have conversations with people began to fade away over the course of this texting. And what Lyft did for me was, first of all, it allowed me to realize I had nothing to complain about. I had been so blessed to travel to almost 90 countries around the world, meet presidents and popes. So there was no feeling sorry for myself. So, and listening to these people's stories and realizing that I have the capabilities of having conversation with good everyday people, it just opened up me to a new horizon and realized that I had a gift, and the gift had been given to me and showing me the world and all the different people and how we could bring them together. And so it's kind of led me to where I am right now as a motivational speaker and a person who has the intentions and the purpose of spreading kindness all around the world.
How did you craft that new identity? Because one of the things we've talked about on the podcast before, whether it's military transition or with athletes, we have this phrase that I've used before of athletes die twice. It's like when you hang up the cleats, when you hang up the boots, whatever it is, and then later on down the road. But it's because you lose that identity of who you are because you're a basketball player for so long, you're a rugby player for so long. How did you take that love of education and craft it into the identity of you're no longer that basketball player, you're no longer a globetrotter, but you are still insert word here?
Yeah, well, Cam, for me, I mean, my motto has always kind of been patience and kindness. If you were a Globetrotter fan, or if you've been to Globetrotter games and you went and looked back in the programs, you would see under my name, my motto was patience and kindness. And so what I did was I just kind of reflected on all, or a lot, not all, but a lot of the major things that happened to my life. It had been a result of the kindness that people had shown toward me, even to the point to where I got a high school, my basketball scholarship. It came from a Division I school who had never seen me play basketball. There was a young man from my hometown who's played at Centenary College in Shreveport, Louisiana. His dad would go back and forth to all the games, as well as all of my high school games right there in my hometown of Brinkley. And by the end of my senior season, I wasn't being recruited as well as he thought that I, could have or should have been. And basically, he told them that there was a young kid in his hometown that was flying under the radar, and my grades and everything were where they needed to be. I qualified on the ACT, and they basically offered me a scholarship without even, seeing me play a basketball game. And then moving on forward to getting into the college dunk contest in '98. My senior year, we had a new transition as far as coaching staff. My original coaches for 3 years got fired, and my senior year, I had a new coach, which was absolutely fine. It wasn't my best year on the basketball court with the new system, but what he did for me, he got me into the college dunk contest at the NCAA Final Four in '98, which I eventually went on to win, coming from the smallest Division I school in the country. So again, it was kindness, somebody believing in me, which a year later led to my opportunity with the Globetrotters. A friend of mine who played soccer at Centenary College, we went to school together from freshman all the way through graduating. We became roommates. And during that time after graduating, I worked in the gym as a personal trainer. He was doing his thing, finishing up grad school. And he went to a Globetrotter game while I was working my 9 to 5, making $7 an hour. And I just remember him coming home from the Globetrotter game, which they'd had at our college. And he came home with this program. He was super excited. Oh, Herb, man, I went to the Globetrotters game tonight, and man, you can do all the stuff that they could do. And I just remember my impersonation of the Globetrotters on Disney's Wild World of Sports, spinning the basketball and doing tricks. And I'm thinking, no, I get that out of my face. I ain't trying to do none of that. I'm trying to play real basketball. But long story short, I ended up coming home from work. I asked for that program. About 2 weeks later, I sent a video in and had a conversation, and they told me they would bring me into their training camp, which would be set for August in '99. Now, mind you, this was March. I had kind of forgotten about it. In August, let's behold, they gave me a call. I'd say it was like on a Monday, and they asked me, hey, would you be, are you still, willing to come to our training camp? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. They're like, all right, we'll be ready in 2 days. We're sending your flight information. So just all these things, the kindness that has been shown into me is the kindness that I want people to be able to realize that, when you carry yourself a certain way and you do things for people and give them an opportunity, there's good things that can happen. If you believe in yourself and you allow people to believe in you and realize that you have an opportunity, to make people happy, to not let them down, and realize that people want to be a part of your story, a part of your ESPN highlight story, as opposed to the people who bring you down, then the sky is the limit.
Where did leadership come from? Because you said you were a class president in high school. I mean, that's no small undertaking. People, I mean, that takes some effort. And then on the team, I'm sorry, I don't know how you did, where you were in college, but on the Globetrotters, you were a leader on the Globetrotters. So where'd this leadership trait, or we'll just call it a trait, where'd that come from?
I think that it came from when I was growing up, just being around my grandmother. She was a person who went to church all the time. I mean, she was 7 days a week, and my mom had me at a young age, so I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. My uncle was a preacher growing up. We would go and travel to different revivals across Texas and Arkansas and Mississippi, and just watch people preach. And I would just see how people needed to be led, and people wanted to, have hope. And through that, I just learned a way to, kind of, I say, convince people to do the right thing in a way that I would want to be convinced. And I think, I mean, the way I became high school president, I didn't even run. They just nominated me and voted for me. But I was also a captain of the basketball team. I was captain of the basketball team in college, captain of the Globetrotters about 5 years in, eventually becoming player coach. I think that is just something that it was a little bit born in me, but it's just a lot of observing and looking at how people want to be led, and knowing how I want to be led, and knowing how I want to be treated. And so, and leading that way, and having that mentality, and knowing that, for me, I like to see other people happy and successful. Nothing makes me happier, because I know that a lot of what's given to me and a lot of what I'm doing right now is making people happy that taught me 20 years ago. Being able to have conversations with my high school basketball coach back and forth on text messages daily, inspiring each other. Him knowing that he has a protege or a prodigy that's out there doing something good. Having a conversation with my health and exercise science teacher back at Centenary College on the daily, back and forth, inspiring her to get up and move the way she inspired me 30 years ago when I first met her. That lets me know that it's worth it. That lets them know that their time, their effort, at least one person, that they had underneath their wing is trying to do something to inspire the world. And for me, that's what it's all about. And I'm trying to inspire a whole generation below me. And I know that it's possible. It's happening right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'll throw out there, I think ministers, preachers are skipped over in leadership, because we had our minister on the show a couple of years ago, Pastor Bob, and there's a lot of truth. You're that guy that's preaching the word of God to the people, to lead them to be into that, make influence in them to take action, and not take action in the wrong way. So there's a lot of leadership lessons there. So that's really cool that you picked it up from that. What's something in the sports world, on the court, a leadership dilemma? Because Camden and I both love our sports, and Camden's still coaching rugby, and I'm always fascinated by the developing the team, and how to maintain that teamwork. Globetrotters is different than any other organization, but how did you, with this group of highly talented men, and you had women on, and you were part of that transition for women, so that's probably a great example. How did y'all adjust to having women Globetrotters join you?
Well, the first woman to play for the Globetrotters was Lynette Woodard back in the 80s. And then along the way in my Globetrotter career in the mid 2000s, we brought in a young lady, TNT Maddox. She played at the University of Temple. I think she had a short stint in the NBA. She was the first female Globetrotter in the 2000s to actually roster up with us. But for me, I mean, it was easy. I have a total of 5 sisters growing up, so I know how to get along with young ladies. But I mean, at the end of the day, when you have a dynamic like that, first of all, congratulations to the young lady who has the nerve, to stand up and say, I can play just as well as these men can. But at the same time, we look at this young lady and we treat her as if she's our sister. She's our young sister. We get to look out for her. We get to make sure that she's taken care of. So imagine when you're traveling around the United States, around the world, you got about 15 or 20 big brothers looking out for you to make sure that nothing bad happens to you. And then just to be able to see the way that they work, their work ethic. It's a different game watching a woman play basketball. I tell them all the time, they have better fundamentals than we do, because us men, we're looking to do the spectacular play every time. They may not always be able to do the spectacular slam dunk play, but they can do everything else on the floor. And if you pay attention to a lot of the shooting contests that they have, like at the NBA and then even at the NCAA Final Four, you'll see that a lot of those young ladies end up winning those 3-point shooting contests at the end. So I mean, just having that, that dynamic, and growing up around a lot of young ladies, a lot of aunts and uncles. For myself, the transition was easy. And then another joy that it would give me was just after the games, being able to stand around the court and sign the autographs, and seeing all the young ladies gather around the only female player that we have on the team, and seeing how excited they are, and the hope that they, have from seeing how well the young lady played with a bunch of, against a bunch of guys.
You said in that example, then in another question earlier, that leadership came like really naturally to you. What was a tough lesson, like something that didn't come naturally? Whether it was one of my first thoughts was you had this, I grew up with 5 sisters mindset, but there might be some guy on the team who is not that kind of a mindset, and you have to help teach him, or challenges like that, maybe in college. What was a big challenge that you faced as a leader, and then how did that change your philosophy?
Well, I mean, I don't want you to think that I've succeeded at everything that I've attempted. You made me immediately think back into 7th grade when I wanted to be in the band, and I wanted to play the drums. And apparently my rhythm, but I got pretty good rhythm now. Apparently my rhythm wasn't good enough to be a drummer, and they put me on the trombone. So I decided to go ahead into athletics and really work on my basketball game at that time.
Mhm.
But just transitioning into leadership, another thing I wanted to tackle on with you, Kev, you asked about that after the fact of not being a Globetrotter. For me, there was a couple of years of not happiest days. There was some depression, there was some soul searching, there was actually going to see psychiatrists. I had several sessions to try to figure out what was going on with me mentally, and then eventually meeting up with now who's my wife. She was my girlfriend at the time. Having somebody who supports you and believes in you. She sent me to a leadership training. I went to a leadership training down in San Diego called Hardcore Leadership, and it was about 3 months of hard, just heart to heart, figuring out what you get to do with yourself, what's the next focus in life. And me going through that training, and originally being in there with about 80 to 100 people who didn't really know who I was, and them believing in me again, in the leadership opportunity, being chosen as one of the leaders one of the main leaders of that group. That let me know right there that I was more than just a basketball player, and I had a gift to not only lead athletes, but to lead anybody in the world. And for me, it's something that I've been able to practice. And now that I practice, being a leader and an ambassador for so long, it's no sweat. I just wake up and do it. It just feels like the right thing to do, to get up and send inspiring messages, and to get up even to go live and work out at 46 years old and get the messages saying, man, you got me inspired today. Man, I rode 12 miles on my bike today because of you. Oh, I walked 2 miles because of you. That's all the fuel that I need. And I know that I'm inspiring people and helping them and making them healthy, even in the mind and in the body, and putting extra days onto their lives in simple acts like that. And plus, I'm helping myself selfishly at the same time.
Did that take time to I don't know, to fill that void? Because one of the things I always talk about with rugby, when I talk with guys I played with, I always talk about how I wish I could still play, because coaching never quite scratches that itch. It's an amazing thing. I love coaching. I love giving back to the sport, teaching the little kids, coaching at the college. I'm like, it's all awesome. I enjoy it so much, but it still gives me that little bit of like, oh, I want to go play. Did you have that same kind of trouble as you moved into leadership in the rest of the world rather than in basketball?
Well, with basketball, for me, after they told me I was done, I didn't play for like 3 years. I totally disattached myself from the game. I wasn't really coaching. It wasn't until about 2 years ago, actually, when COVID kicked in, that I had a chance to really sit down and realize how blessed I had, been during that time, and realize that I had a gift. I began to do basketball training sessions live on Zoom for the first time, and I got a lot of joy out of that. I began to plan basketball clinics during that time, which eventually I had 3 of them last year. I have another one coming up in a couple of weeks here down in Florida. But just having time to to reflect to where I am right now, to the point where now I'm playing again. I'm playing full court. I'm training kids. And again, selfishly, like bringing kids over to my house or in the park and training them, I'm winning every way because as a motivational speaker, I get to practice and work on the things I want to use to inspire other kids. Then I'm teaching kids something about the game that's helping them get to a level faster than where I was able to get to it. And third, I'm getting a pretty good workout every day as a result of working with these kids. So it's a win-win situation. I mean, I can't lose with this. And, you know, to be able to get the feedback from the parents. I got this one kid, for example, that I'm working with. We've done about 4 sessions together. And the whole thing that his dad wanted from him was confidence. You know, he said he can play, he just needs confidence. And when I'm training young people like that, I look into their eyes and I imagine, what would I want told to me? How would I want this game taught to me at this age? Do I want someone yelling at me? Do I want it to be fun? You know, you can kind of reach every kid by looking into them and see what they need, or every human for that matter. And now after 3 sessions, his dad is like, he needs you. He needs you. This is what it's all about. You know, and that gives me a lot of joy and satisfaction. We get to play one-on-one. I get videos now of the kid actually in the parking lot working on things that we worked on. His dad sending me videos of him executing and actually practicing the things that we worked on. And I mean, there's no better feeling in the world. And these same things that I apply on the basketball court, I apply when I speak to young people and I speak to large crowds, as Otis can testify to. There's as a globetrotter and traveling to almost 90 countries around the world, there is no audience that you can't entertain or that you can't reach. And I'm just, you know, feeling blessed and excited every day to wake up and get this opportunity, because there was a time early on when I got let go with the Globetrotters and I couldn't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. But now that I have a purpose that I found after, you know, 5 years of retirement, I can't even sleep at night. I'm at 4:30, 5:30, 6, just up ready to spread some positivity each and every day. And that's a condition. The conditioning started in 2020 during COVID, a routine, meditation, positivity, read a positive word, go work, you know, get exercise in, then get your day started, set some goals, write them down. And now that I've been doing that for the past couple of years, it's my new routine. And it's led me into now thinking and knowing that there's nothing that I can't do or accomplish in this life.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I want to jump into something I'm fascinated about. And I was just thought about this. The Globetrotters have been around for a long time. And the culture of the men and women who have been on that team has managed to stay the same, which is an amazing feat. How can you let us in on a little bit of insight of how that culture has been maintained all these years?
Well, I mean, I'd say that, first of all, the Globetrotters do a great job of recruiting talent. I mean, the talent that they bring in are you know, young men and young women who have, you know, displayed outstanding citizenship throughout, only through, you know, high school, through their college careers, and some of them through playing in the NBA and overseas. And it doesn't take long for us as Globetrotters. You know, after a couple of years, we consider ourselves like real Globetrotters, and we can tell when someone has that Globetrotter trait when they come in within a short period of time. It could only take us, you know, 2 weeks to a month. And, you know, there's something special about actually putting on that uniform and being able to go out there and be able to actually show history. Because after each and every game, you got families coming up and dads and moms saying, well, I remember when I went to see the Charters back in the 80s in Madison Square Garden. Thank you for allowing me to, you know, share this opportunity with my kid. Oh, I remember, you know, when I seen the Globetrotters back in the early 90s, and now I'm bringing, and, you know, to be able to repeat that and to be able to hear that night in and night out. I mean, telling you how great you are each and every night, and you win. I mean, who's not signing up for that? But, you know, every person has a story. When I mentioned the fact that I was a Globetrotter, and it's something that we take pride in. We take pride in creating those experiences, and the more that you're involved in it, the more it actually means to you. And it's funny you asked that question too. I was just in LA for the summer league a couple of weeks ago for the NBA Vegas Summer League, and one of the guys who played in the NBA and played with the Globetrotters is Cedric Ceballos, who actually played for the Phoenix Suns, which you being in Tucson is pretty close to Phoenix. So Cedric came and joined the Globetrotters in the late, I think it was around 2009, and sharing an experience with him and actually being able to be on tour with a guy who I saw watched win the NBA dunk contest at one point in the early 90s, for me was more than a dream come true. we were talking about his experience in the NBA, and then he began to share his experience with the Globetrotters. And I just saw his face light up. He was like, man, it was so fun, being on the bus, going to different arenas. I was starting to work on my hook shot. They were giving me an opportunity to talk on the microphone. And then one day, it just ended. But it was like, what an experience to hear how much joy he got playing for the Globetrotters from 1 year, from a guy who played in the NBA for over 10 years. To have that comparison and know that I had that experience for 18 years. I look around that room and see, nothing against the former NBA guys who I'm friends with, but I wouldn't trade one of their years for my 18 years of traveling around the world for the people that I had an opportunity to meet, the things I've been able to learn how to do with the basketball, the shows that I've been able to be on with the Globetrotters. I don't think that I would have been able to do those things, if I had any other experience. And so I'm just excited now that I was able to see so much and now apply it to my life and encourage other people to, reach for the sky at the same time.
I'm hearing something, and Camden, you'll relate to this. It's about the jersey and leaving the jersey. And I'll quote this from the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks, is leaving the jersey in a better place than it was. Right. I mean, that's what it's, I hear that same culture with the Globetrotters, which is just so cool to think about, in that sense of, the guys and gals that put on that jersey, they look at it as an honor to wear it, and not as a job or a paycheck or just something I'm doing for now sort of thing, that this will lead to. They look at that jersey in a special way. Is that a good translation of that feeling that y'all had?
That's a perfect translation of it. I mean, I'm sure that any basketball fan that's been watching basketball lately know that Bill Russell passed away, was one of the greats. Another great, Wilt Chamberlain. A lot of people may not know that Wilt Chamberlain was a Harlem Globetrotter.
No, I did not know
a lot of the interviews, when you hear about Wilt Chamberlain, he'll tell you that his best and most fun time he had during his basketball career was his 1 year with the Harlem Globetrotters. And, that's pretty cool from a guy who's considered one of the greats, to hear him say that one of the best years of his life was the year that he toured and played with the Globetrotters before joining the NBA, is something that gives me great joy, knowing that I had a chance again to do that for 18 years. So, man, it's something about putting on that uniform. It's something about leaving a legacy and making sure that, like you said, you leave it better than you did when you came. And that's something that makes me think about Curly Neal, the late great Curly Neal. He always, when he would come out and visit us on the road, he would just check, are they taking care of you guys? Are they feeding you? How are the fans? How's your family doing? What can I do to help? Man, you're helping us just by talking to us and encouraging us. And so I've kind of taken on that, that same role with my role as an 18-year former Globetrotter, from, starting Facebook groups. We started again during COVID. We had like 60 people originally in the Facebook group, but by the end of 2020, we had like over 200 people in our Facebook group. We were doing calls twice a week, supporting each other, making sure that we were all mentally strong. And so, that's my role now. Even though I'm not in the organization per se with the Facebook groups, I'm a person that, created a space where we can all come to and share photos and support each other and promote each other. And again, that's what it's all about, man. If you're going to live on this earth, you might as well leave an impression while you're here. So many others have.
Yeah. Talking about leaving the jersey in a better place, one of the things that talking about the All Blacks specifically is they recognize like the impact that they have on their community and what they mean for the country and for the rugby community in their country and then around the world as well. You've talked a lot about the culture aspect, but what I'm curious about is, what role do you think the Globetrotters play in, and this might be such a small sport word, but the pipeline? We say that all the time in rugby because we're always talking about growing the game, and it's the pipeline of, getting people involved in the sport. What kind of role do you think the Globetrotters have in that pipeline as far as getting more people involved, or what do you think that role is?
Cam, the Globetrotters are the team that introduced basketball to the world. James A. Naismith, he was the founder, the Canadian over there in Massachusetts and whatnot. And the reason why I'm happy you asked this question is because simple fact that I just finished filming a movie called Sweetwater. And Nate Sweetwater Clifton was a former Harlem Globetrotter who became the first African-American to sign an NBA contract. So from this past, it was started in May through mid-June, I had an opportunity to film out in Hollywood. We filmed for a couple of weeks on Warner Brothers Studios. We filmed for a couple of weeks on Disney Ranch and put together a film that is going to tell you exactly what that was all about and how the Globetrotters did impact the game of basketball, from coming up with the behind the back pass, the 3-man weave, the alley-oop slam dunk. This was all Globetrotter stuff. And Nate Sweetwater Clifton, who happened to be a Globetrotter, was the first person to sign an NBA contract. And this movie is going to talk about that journey and how the Globetrotters revolutionized the game and how they opened up doors and took the game eventually around the world, the vision that Abe Saperstein had. And for me being able to play a role in that movie, I was able to play Babe Presley, Louis Babe Presley, who was one of the original Globetrotters back in 1926 and so on, when the Globetrotters first started. I was able to play his role along, start next to Sweetwater, who's played by Everett Osborne. And it was really cool for me, having played for 18 years, but being able to read a script and go back into time and see what these guys were visualizing as their future. I've already lived it. And to be able to kind of go back into that acting space and play a role and be able to visualize and live what they have. And now being in a space to where now, like, a lot of what they saw happened. Now I see even more happening beyond what they saw. And so, I mean, it's really cool. The Globetrotters are the team that introduced basketball to the world. Even now, if you look at the WNBA, you look at the Big Three, they're shooting 4-pointers. That was something that the Globetrotters came up with. I'm not saying that Kirk Snyder was the person who first came up with it, but he was the first person he was the president of our company for a number of years. He actually put the mats on the floor and we started shooting 4-pointers. And now to see that, now they're considering actually putting a 4-point line in, it's just another step to show you that the Globetrotters were then and are still revolutionizers of the game of basketball.
How much do you think that vision has to do with it? Like, what kind of lessons, as you're looking back on it? Because, like, thinking from, personal standpoint, business perspective, whatever way you want to apply that, to have that kind of a vision and to see it come to fruition is such an amazing thing. What kind of lessons have you seen, kind of looking back in time a little bit on that?
The lesson is that anything is possible, and you have to be willing to step outside the box to make something happen. You cannot sit around and listen to people that can't see your vision tell you, oh no, that's impossible. Oh no, that can't happen. I mean, anything can happen. If Abe Saperstein had a vision, a little Jewish, guy from Chicago, Illinois, had the vision to, take these guys around the world, these African-American basketball players, these great entertainers, then why can't I make something like that happen? If Oprah Winfrey can move the world through television, why can't I make that happen? If Steve Harvey can entertain people through comedy, nothing against Steve Harvey, but he can't handle the basketball like I can. And I got some pretty good jokes myself. But if he can do that, I can do it too. If Obama can become president, a person who I've shaken hands with, twice, I've met him twice. He's a human, just like me. And I believe that anything is possible. And my ultimate vision now is, one day I want to be the owner of the Globetrotters. I want to acquire the team, and nobody to have the team better than me. It'll definitely be in good hands. And what a perfect union to be in so many arenas around the world to spread kindness and get this message really out there through a team that's already been to so many different places.
I have I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask this, because it's something that's always fascinated me, is because you'll see clips of it at games and things like that. When a professional athlete, a superstar, does something for a little kid, and you see that look on that kid's face, whether it's a special needs kid, what's that, a Wish Foundation kid, whatever those things are. Could you tell us a story? Because I know you've got probably 1,000 of them. Could you tell us a story of one of those that you've had, in your career?
Well, yeah, the thing about that is I've had hundreds of those during my career. And one of the things I get to do right now with going into different schools across the United States, schools and universities, is put joy on kids' faces. Each and every day that I get an opportunity to speak, I go and speak on the importance of kindness. I even hand out an award to the kindest kid at the school as nominated by the teachers at the end of the day. But even just most recently, one of the great experiences that I had, one of the best experiences I had, was in Auburn, California. Is at the school of my nephew. It was an elementary school that I went to in Auburn, California. And there was a young lady in a wheelchair. I mean, she was I'm not sure what she had, but she was in a wheelchair, and I could tell that she was having a great time, and she looked like she wanted to spin the basketball on her finger as she noticed I was transferring the ball from one kid's, finger to the other, and she was, clapping. And I asked her if she wanted to do it. And, she was brave enough to stick her finger up. We got it on video. And I mean, just the reaction, that she had, and to see how her mom, was responding was, I mean, it was priceless. It's a goosebumps type of moment. And then just to piggyback along that, it was my nephew's school, so we stayed a little bit longer. We normally we're there for about an hour. My friend and I, who went with me that day to do the presentation, we stayed almost until an hour before school was out. And I just remember when we were unloading and then loading up, packing up to get ready to leave, the principal, she came running to us as we were leaving the gymnasium, breaking down the setup, and she said, "Oh my God, you guys, unbelievable! Only 45 minutes of school left. No discipline. There has been zero discipline today. Pray. This has never happened before. You guys are amazing." I mean, I was like, wow. I mean, I don't know how long that she has been teaching, but to get that immediate feedback and see her in a frantic, 45 minutes of school left. I'll never forget it. No discipline today. There's been zero discipline. That's all the feedback I need and all the motivation I need to let me know that I keep on going. I get to keep on going.
How have you taken, you've talked a lot about how patience and kindness were so formulative for you as a leader, as a basketball player, and as a person. How did you move that into the public speaker role and kind of get that inspiration to go spread that out further?
Well, when I first left the Globetrotters in 2017, I didn't feel like I had a voice. I didn't know what I get to speak on, because what I spoke on for so long, which was good, but it was all scripted. It was, you go into a school, this is our presentation that we give. When you go to MSNBC, or when you go to Fox and Friends, or when you go to Good Morning America, these are the talking points that you get to talk about. You stay away from this, you stay away from that. So what happened over the course of about 2 years and writing my book, I began to realize that I have a story. I have a lot of stories. I've forgotten about half of the great experiences that I had, and people live for those. Those stories inspire people. So then I began to realize that I have a voice. And as a result of playing for the Globetrotters for almost 20 years, I've been into hundreds, if not thousands, of schools around the world, some schools that it can't even understand the language that I'm speaking. But to know that if I can reach kids and adults who can't even speak the language that I can, once I begin to craft my story and realize the results and see the results that I'm getting, everything else has become easier since then. And one thing that I had to realize too is I had to quit worrying about what other people may think about what I'm doing and what I'm saying, because I'm now focused on the people who want to be led, the people who want to be, brought out of the darkness, the people who see better visions and, see better possibilities within their life. So it just came from building confidence, repetition, even getting more confident with social media. There was times when I would take videos of, oh, should I put that out? Should I put that out? What are people going to think? What are they going to say? It doesn't matter. Somebody's getting inspired because I'm putting it out there anyway.
Oh, that's such a good attitude. And I want to jump on your book because I'm really curious about the fact some people write their books for there it is. Yep. Perfect.
Projects, popes, and presidents.
Love that picture of you too. But some people write books for different reasons. So was your book, and I'll give you two that I'm thinking of, was your book, I want to share, or was it a little bit more of therapy for your own self, or something else?
Originally, me writing my book was me wanting to share and have a tool to get into different spaces to speak. And that was one of the things that I was, recommended. Hey, if you want to get speaking engagements and you want to be able to share, you have to write your story down. And what happened to me as a result of that, it was therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It was therapy for me. It took me back to some places, some places I hadn't thought about in a long time, some spaces that I hadn't taken myself into a long time. Not all of them were good spaces, but it allowed me to sit down in those spaces and learn from those experiences. And one of the things I talk about with people, we have a lot of good things. We have more good than bad, I think, happen in our life overall, if we're being honest with ourselves. Yeah. But as I reflect back on, a few of the bad things I say that may have happened, a lot of times those are the experiences that I've learned the most from. you know. So I'm grateful for those people who have even put me through those tough life lessons, because there's a lesson in everything that we learn. And those lessons through those tough experiences probably gave me the muscle and the endurance and the preparation to be prepared when those things appeared again. Like, oh, that's what, you know, so and so did to me. Thank you for doing that to me. Now I know that this is not okay. You know, so it's good to learn some of these lessons early on and along the way than to learn, you know, learn them later on when it's too late. It's like losing money. If you lose an investment early on, you know, a couple $1,000s here, I'm glad that I learned that here as opposed to when it got up here in the millions, you know, let it be said billions. So these lessons that you learn, recognize them so you see them when they pop up later on in life.
Yeah, you know, that makes me think of something that I had a conversation with a client last night about this, of how when you expose yourself to things, you look at like mistakes and those type of stuff, that whatever you're exposing yourself to, the stress, the anxiety of that situation, how what it really does is like increases like your pain tolerance. Like I think about like as an athlete, that when you push yourself to that crazy, you know, to the point where you're throwing up after running suicides, that then when you're in the game, that's nothing because you've been at worse. And I think that's a really good perspective for looking back on those mistakes. It's like, I've had this bad. I know what that looks like. So I know how to handle it now when I'm moving forward. You could see those kind of things coming.
You know how to get through it because you're conditioned for it. You're like, you know, it popped up. Oh, that happened to me 10 years ago. I know how to get through that. I'm going to be okay, you know. And so that was another thing that's happened since I left the Globetrotters. I became more vulnerable. I mean, I let people know that every day hasn't been a great day, but I get to convince myself that every day is a great day. And I learned how to create great days every day through meditation every morning and visualizing the days that I get to create. I mean, it's been a long time since I've had, you know, a bunch of bad days. I'm not perfect. I get to push through every single day, but I know that I'm inspiring people to the point to where if I don't message some of the people in my circle after a couple of days, they're like, oh my God, what's wrong? I need my motivation for the day. But at the same time, sometimes I'll take a step back just to see who's paying attention, see who's going to give me, you know, that little bit of energy when I need it. So, you know, it's all mind game a little bit. It's all lesson learning, and it's all inspiring others to be great. And I'm conditioned for it, and I'm here for the long haul.
What what's next? And I got let's see if I've got my list right. Movie star, uh, motivational speaker, influencer, future professional basketball team owner. Uh, what's next for Herb Flight Time?
Well, I mean, what's next is I just want to create more opportunities for not only myself, but for my, you know, former teammates and people that are just struggling around the world. The things I want to create as far as, you know, documentaries and television, a lot of it will be based on my experiences. I want to just create stuff that, you know, positive things. And that's what's next for me, putting out as much positive stuff as I can out there, getting on stages all around the world and just impacting people and being a blessing to people and giving back to a world that has given so much to me. So that's what's next to me. I plan to be one of the, if not the number one speaker in the world. You know, if you know, if these other speakers, if Jim Rome did it and Les Brown did it and the hip hop preacher can do it, man, the experience that I've had, the stories that I get to tell, the experience that I'm still having, and the stories that I'm still getting to tell, it's unlimited. And I know that I get to inspire the world. I'm flight time, baby.
You,
When
you made me think of something that I meant to ask earlier. Uh, who was your favorite person to have met in like in you know, in the Globetrotter 18 years of popes and presidents and all that? Who was that person that is like, man, that was so cool?
Well, this may surprise you. It wasn't the Pope and it wasn't the president. One of the coolest individuals that I met was Shaquille O'Neal.
Hmm.
I've met Shaq a couple of times, and to have his celebrity status, even back then, meeting him in the early '90s. Every time I met him, I don't know if he remembered me, but he definitely act like he remembered me every single time. And even showing up at some Globetrotter games and seeing him in the locker room, just his playful spirit and making you feel like human is a gift that he has. And I feel like I have a similar gift. You know, that's why you see him on everything. Everybody trusts, you know, Shaquille O'Neal. You see him out, you know, blessing young kids with shoes and families, you know, with different things just randomly. And just meeting him in person, he was one of the most genuine and is one of the most genuine human beings I've ever met. So yeah, I have to go with Big Shaq.
I love that because he seems like that guy that you just want to, you know, have a beer with, play around a golf with, maybe shoot a couple of hoops or whatever.
Hey, and don't let them tackle you either, because
Herb, you were talking about, going for as far as like what's next. You mentioned helping teammates. Is that, when we talked about your transition, and I know you still had your dark times and you had to go through and do the work to get through it, but was that kind of a recognition that that transition came not easy to you, but that you saw the path and you were able to pull yourself through it? Is that kind of what you're looking to go back and help people with, that making that transition out from pro athlete into, I always want to say the civilian world because it makes me think of the military transition, but same thing, I guess.
yeah, I definitely want to be, and I have been able to kind of be a person to help a lot of guys, transition, even just through conversation. Because when I left the Globetrotters, to be honest with you, they didn't have anything lined up for me as other opportunities. They didn't have counseling or anything like that lined up. It was something that I had to go and find for myself, and that was one of the big motivations in me starting that Facebook group. And then, unfortunately, right after starting the Facebook group, COVID happened, but it happened right on time, to the point to where my intentions to bring people together, it gave us all time to sit down and make that happen. So, that's what it's all about. It's about, building a foundation, creating opportunities, and not letting guys after having 10, 15-year careers just go and disappear. Once a Globetrotter, always a Globetrotter. Once an ambassador, always an ambassador. You still have those same skills within you. You just get to work on them even more. You may not be able to run up and down the court the way you're used to, but you can develop your speaking skills. There's people that want to hear what you had to say. They want to hear about the places that you want to been to, that you've been to. They want to hear about the struggles that you've been through and what you did to get through those struggles. So there's so many guys that have traveled to, and young ladies that have traveled to so many different places whose voices have been silent, and I want to give them a platform to not only speak again, but also put some money in their pocket at the same time.
I love that, because you're continuing to give back to that thing that means so much to you. And here's another parallel between the professional athlete and the military. I feel that same way. I give back to my veteran community, and for me, part of that, my passion within the veteran community is those guys in transition. And because I was like you, that struggle of who am I, what do I do sort of thing. And I don't want anybody else to walk through those same troubles, because, and I call this like it is. If I'm not sharing those experiences and how not to, then I'm being selfish. I'm being a selfish SOB. And you know what? That's a pretty greedy way to go through life, not sharing what you know.
I want to sorry, I was just going to add one thing while we're talking about transition. I think this is such a cool, subtle thing, is Herb, you're still flight time. I love that so much, because to me, I didn't feel like I was a rugby player anymore. Now I'm Coach Cam. I'm set on that. I've got my rugby hat I can put on still, but I love that you're still flight time. You still have that identity. You didn't, close the book and go on to something else. It's a continuation. That's a really cool thing that I think you don't see that much with people in transition.
Well, Cam, in transition, I started that transition when I wasn't jumping as high as I used to. So the kids would come up to me after the game toward the end of my career. Oh, flight time. Why do they call you flight time? I didn't see you dunk the entire game, so I had to come up with something. So, and Cam's probably heard this story. I told him, I said, hey, well, they used to call me flight time for how high I used to jump. Now they call me flight time because I'm always at the airport on time for my flights. But I'm flying. I am flying a little bit again now at the age of 46. I dunked for the first time the other day in about 6 years on a 10-foot basket. So I'm turning back the hands of time. And not only am I talking about it, I'm being about it.
I love that, man. I love that. Good for you to do that and keep on doing that.
Not over. It ain't over.
Oh, it ain't over until you throw in the towel, man. And it's up to you, right? You just keep going. My buddy that I hunt with, another Green Beret, we always talk about that. Ain't gonna get there as fast as I used to, but I'm still gonna get there.
That's right.
So,
I'll get there smarter.
Yeah.
Most of the time, there's still that dumb Otis that's still back here. It comes up with that crazy idea that, oh yeah, I could do that. Probably like you running up down the court with the kids playing full court. Woo!
Yeah.
Man, Herb, this has been great, and I got an easy one because I did not know this, that Wilt Chamberlain, from what I learned, that Wilt Chamberlain was a Globetrotter. Uh, what an amazing player and a guy who was a trendsetter and things that he changed in the game and the NBA. And to think that, he spent a year in the Globetrotters, that just, I was that kid in the stands, with Meadowlark Lemon and Curly Neal. And I love the fact that you shared that Curly Neal is still involved, because he just seems like, or was, he's passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He passed away 2 years ago, but
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
was
But just,
heavily involved.
yeah, just that fact. Those guys were, man, I mean, you can see here I am. That's been 50 years, since watching those guys play. And I still have that vision of them out on the court and watching them on TV. Yeah. So I appreciate knowing that Wilt Chamberlain was a Globetrotter. That is so cool. Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah, and this one I think is something I probably heard a lot, and I think this is just really good. I think something I needed to hear. But talking about, don't worry about what people think. You guide the people who need it. The people who are looking for what you have to say, they will come. Don't worry about the other people, because they're not the ones you're looking to talk to anyway. And I think that is just such a good lesson for myself and my business and everything I'm doing. So I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
What
did I learn? I learned that Coach Cam was a pretty good rugby player, and he's a big sports fan. But most importantly, I learned that you and I, we have a lot in common, all three of us. I mean, Otis, with you serving in the military, with that mentality that you have, Cameron, with you being a rugby player, we all share a similar mentality. And at the end of the day, I've learned that we all want to help others. We all get to make a difference in the world. We all want to make a difference, and we're doing it right now by actually taking time out, putting something positive into the world. And I learned that I found two more people to be inspired by. Well, at least one more, because Otis already inspired me. And I look forward to doing anything I can for you guys moving forward, and for anybody else that I can help.
How do folks find you? How do they follow you on the social stuff, and get you to come to their school or up on their stage?
All right, the way to find out. The best way to find me is I'm on all social media platforms. I am on LinkedIn as the motivational speaker, or Herbert Flight Time Lang on LinkedIn. I stay busy on LinkedIn. On Facebook, Herbert Seneca Lang, Herbert S. Lang, or Herbert Lang. Also on Instagram and Twitter, I am at DA Trotter4, at D as in dog, A as in apple, Trotter4. And on my Instagram and on my Twitter, mainly my Instagram, you'll see me posting a lot of positive messages each and every day. You'll see me working out, training, trying to inspire people. And, you see videos of me working in different schools, speaking at different places. So if you love to have me or someone like me, one of my friends maybe, please reach out. I'll be happy to come out and figure out a way that we can share some kindness in your school or community, because kindness at the end of the day is free. You got merchandise and everything.
That's right. That's right. Never forget that, folks. Kindness is free, and Herb is living it. There is no doubt about that. Herb, man, it is so good to have you today, and we really appreciate you carving out some time to spend with us and share. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you guys.
Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank y'all for listening to the Cam and Otis Show, and a special thanks to our guest, Herb Flight Time Lang, for joining us today. And of course, our sponsor, Tribe and Purpose. Find your tribe, find your purpose. Get started for free today at findyourpurpose.coach. Make sure to follow the Cam and Otis Show on Instagram and Facebook, and please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. Videos of the podcast are on our YouTube page, and you can always get a full archive of our episodes at thecamandotusshow.buzzsprout.com. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next time.